Well, here we are, chapter 10. We're kind of nearing the end of the Hobie build. And this chapter is a combination of a lot of different videos, tips and tricks to help kind of customize and fine tune your one design boat. Some of those I think are some really speed enhancing ideas. So don't take it lightly, and I'd recommend going all the way through the video as there might be something at the end that you miss. So we're at the regatta site, got the boat set up, and we're going to align the rudders because you got to get them pretty much straight, and we're going to be at the back of the boat, and I'll show you how we do that. You measure the forward leading edge of the rudder, and then you measure the trailing edge of the rudder at a specific point, and make sure that the distances are about the same, or actually you want a little bit of toe in by an 1/8 or a 1/16 of an inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the rudders aligned. We don't want them off like this or that. We're going to have them aligned and align with that. And there is an adjustment on the newer boats where you can, where what we can do is we can take this off and we can lengthen it, or we can shorten it. And so if we shorten it, then of course that gives us more toe in, and if we lengthen it, it gives us less toe in. And it's really a question of how we measure it up. So I've got my crew here, and we're going to measure it up and see where we're at. So we're going to go down. There's the knuckle of the rudder right here, and we're going to go down about 3 or 4 inches below that. So it's almost midway between the whole length of the rudder, but just right about here. And what I like to do, and I've got my crew doing the same, and so I'm measuring this measurement, and I'm seeing I've got 84 and 5/8. I'm holding my finger right there, and I bring it around to the back side because I don't want to. I'm holding my finger there, so it's straight across. I don't want it down here. I don't want it up there. I want it straight across. And so I'm at 84 and 5/8. This is 84 and 3/4, which is perfect. It came this way, which means I've got the outer dimension, the dimension on the back was bigger by an 1/8 of an inch, which means now that the rudders have a slight toe in, but ever so slight by an 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch. And that's what you want. Well, I'm at the race site. It's an off day, so get a chance to just kind of go out and practice and play and experiment and continue to basically put my new boat together. It's all rigged, and there's a few things that I want to show you. So there she is, all rigged up and set up. We're going to start at the back. I want to show you a few things, particularly with the main system and with bungees. But let's start first with the main traveler. Most people will put a knot in their main traveler. I discovered years ago that I preferred to actually downsize to a smaller diameter line. That way it will run through my main traveler system a lot quicker and easier when I'm going around the weather mark and just whenever I need it. Now, the rules say you cannot splice the main sheet, but you can put knots in it, and so this is what I've done, and I've used that as my stopper knot between the two. I measured this second traveler line out, and note, first of all, it's a different color, all right? Having everything the same color makes it really tough when you tell your crew, no, the red sheet. If they're all red, it doesn't help. So, in any case, I measured this out so that the traveler stops. And if you look, it stops about an inch or two short, right? That's as far as it'll go. And the reason I do that is so that when I'm jibing in 20 to 30 knots of breeze, and it's a hard jibe, and the traveler goes sliding all the way over the other side, it's not going to hit the corner casting, because if it hits the corner casting enough times, that traveler is just going to keep on going, and now you're going into the leeward mark, and you have no traveler, and that's going to make it tough. So I like to keep mine a little shy. That's about an inch and a half between the two. Little cushion, that way any shock is taken up in the traveler line itself. Another thing I want to show you is the 3 bungees. I've got 3 bungees here that I'm particularly proud of. I can't say I can take credit for them, but I really like them anyhow. The first is a little traveler bungee right here. It doesn't do anything. It just, well, it does do something. I'll tell you in a minute. And it just goes under the traveler, and then it ties under the traveler. And the whole idea of this is to keep the traveler from backing around on it. You just cannot do it that way. It'll swing freely, but it's not going to back around. I've had that happen to me before. That is a permanent bungee. It gets very little wear and tear on it, so once is enough, and I'm good. Now, the second bungee is a little more common. By the way, none of these ideas are mine. They're all copied. That's why you go to bigger events like Nationals and Worlds and stuff. And this one, I call it my stand-up bungee. It makes the blocks stand up, so they don't just keep flopping to one side or the other. And basically what you do is you run it through the forward part of the block. I have slightly different blocks. These are blocks that are European, I think. But the Harkin blocks, they used to have a metal plate here with a hole on this side, a hole on the other side. You run the bungee through that underneath your sheet. Let me see if I can find, where's my sheet? There it is. So underneath here, all right? And so it comes out the other side, and then it runs through the block, through the traveler, excuse me, right in here, okay? And then I tie it in the back, all right? And so I tie it nice and tight, and that just helps the main stand up. It doesn't get caught in the cutout on the rear crossbar on either side, and so it just really helps keep things clean and me not having to do any more housework. The third one, I'm pretty sure Mark Modeman taught me. This one's on the rudders, and what I've done is I've gone over with some pretty heavy duty bungee, and I'm going to, let me undo this, and so you can see it better. And now I've gone through twice through this little space between the upper part of the gudgeon and the rudder itself, and then I've wrapped it around the rudder arm twice, and then I flop it over the forward nut. So when I'm in the beach, it just looks like that. But when I'm ready to go sailing, then I stretch these over the nut. And boy, I mean to tell you, this really helps in the jibe, because when you lift that the rudder cross arm, the rudder just immediately wants to go down. You're not out there fishing and pushing and doing a whole bunch of stuff. So those are our 3 bungees in review. We've got one on the main traveler, we've got one on the main blocks, and then one on the rudders. And we'll get into some more rigging tips in a little bit. Going to dive into the jib systems that we have on the Hobie 16 here. So this is a look at our jib. It's all set up, okay? And a couple of little things I've done. First of all, this blue line is your jib sheet, and it's running through the blocks there. And then this red line here is our jib traveler, and it makes the traveler for the jib go in and out, right? You'll notice I've added a couple little balls to the jib traveler. It's just my own little personal way of finishing things off. But what I like to do, and I'm not sure why I do it, but I don't travel all the way in. Okay, I've got it set up so that as far as I can go in is still about an inch and a half from where they put the stop. It's just something I've sailed with for a long time. Somebody I respected told me it was a good idea. So yeah, I've done that. I haven't noticed one way or the other that it's helped or not, so can't really tell you. On the jib clue plate, I typically run, you'll notice this is real common. You run your shackle through 2 holes, not through 1. And that way you have better, tighter sheeting going on. You can suck this clue plate in closer to that eye right there than if there's just in 1 hole and the shackle is extending past the clue plate. And I'll show you that here. All right, so now I sheet in, and that's as close as I'm getting on this configuration, all right? And let me get that out of the way. And I have that much space in between. What I don't want, and I actually hate this, is that when this block is too blocked with that eye, because then I don't know if it's all the way in. I typically don't sail with this much space, but again, it's a practice day. I've rigged the boat slightly different. Usually, the distance from the edge of the sail is maybe about an inch away from the about half the distance that I've got right now, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just trying out a few different things. But that's really important. I see a lot of people and they're too blocked, and they don't know if they're all sheeted in all the way or not. And usually they're not. So I've got that going on. I've got the jib block using the jib shackle using 2 holes on the clue. I usually use these bottom 2 holes because I'm just somebody who's really worried about backwinding my main. I want to keep that slot between the main and the jib open and flowing, and the best way to do that is to use these bottom holes. Today I'm going out, it's lighter air, so I'm going to move it up a hole, a couple, 1 hole, and try the second and third holes there and see how that works. Continuing on with the jib system, here we are at the bridle, and so I'm using the second hole down, and realistically, Gavin Colby told me one time, world champion, to get this as low as you can. Again, it's a new boat. I'm still experimenting, and I got to get this sucker lower, but for now, I'm just using hole 2. I had it at hole 3, but when I did that, I was block to block. Remember that block to block thing? So I went back I moved it up a hole and moved everything away from those blocks, so I get a little bit of distance between my jib sheeting in there. But I'm not happy with that, and I'm going to try to get it further down. That's one reason I'm going out. I highly recommend the Telecat. It really helps your crew, and you can just tell your crew, okay, release the jib sheet on the tack when you see the vane hit the next arm like that. So when it's on either side, they release, and it gives them really good timing, especially if the crew is new. In addition to that, though, I've got some mohair yarn that on either side of the bridle. I can't tell you how many people I see, they go out on sailing with no telltales. They don't know where the wind's coming from, and these one. So the Telecat, it's good from all the way down to about 4 or 5 knots. Below that, it's not really worth much. But these guys, I use them exclusively downwind, and I'm aiming for a 90-degree appearance, so I want it to be underneath my, actually underneath my Telecat, and that's about 90 degrees. Actually, a little forward of my Telecat. A lot of times people will cheat and just put it underneath the bridle tank or underneath the Telecat, but you're losing a few degrees. So I like to get it slightly past the Telecat. If you can sail deep downwind, that's a really good thing. But these puppies are really critical for sailing downwind, in my opinion. You can use cassette tape. I prefer something with greater contrast. It's easier for me to see, and because I'm living up in the Pacific Northwest and there's a lot of rain, I learned that mohair yarn repels the rain and the wetness and operates better. And the last little go fast tip came from Jill Nickerson and Robbie Daniel out in Clearwater. They're coaches, and if you want to go fast, I highly recommend you use them. But Robbie said, "Yep, go one hand width in and one hand width up, and put another little piece of yarn right there." I use that in really light air. It saves me from having to look up, and this way I can concentrate on my Telecat and my jib trim, and it's surprising how accurate it is. It's not as good, and once I'm into medium weather, any kind of wind, I don't use them. I use my regular tailtails, but for low breeze setting, these little bits of yarn really help. Finally, you can notice Hobie has added another grommet here. That's so that in heavier air, if you want, you can kind of really take a downhaul to it and tighten it down a little bit. Again, that's something I haven't used and I'm still experimenting with. But I do sail off of those two tailtails. If you look, you might be able to see the wind. I've got a leech tailtail in there. Haven't used that much yet either, but Paul Hess and Mike Montague out in California think that it's a real help. So I'm working on that because I got a lot to learn too. That's about it for jib. For the mainsail, there really isn't too much to say. I've already talked about it in other videos. I do have a couple of leech tailtails in panel number 2 and 3 up at the very top. Those are really important for making sure when you're sailing upwind. But other than that, I mean, I stuffed the battens pretty good. I've got my 6-to-1 downhaul and my main sheet and my outhaul. Outhaul doesn't do much, but you know, makes people feel good, so we use it. One thing that I will be doing, and I forgot to, is I'm going to add marks to my halyards because I have a scale right here. Let me back that out a little bit, and that way I can reproduce my downhaul setting, and also I'll mark my jib halyard so I can reproduce. I'll put a mark right there so I can reproduce my jib halyard. So on a really fast day, I'll go, oh yeah, I want that at 4, and I can make those kind of adjustments. Otherwise, you don't know where you are. So it's a real good point of reference to mark your halyards. Ready? So today I'm going to talk to you about mast rake. Mast rake is really important on a Hobie cat. Generally speaking, the more mast rake you have, the closer to the wind you can point upwind. And he who can get around the top mark in the top 3 or the top 5 usually has a better chance of winning than somebody at the back. So you want to be able to rig your boat for top speed. Generally speaking, well, let me tell you how you measure your mast rake. Let me show you. I'm going to take my main halyard and making sure that the sails aren't interfering with it. I'm going to put my finger right underneath this bow, okay, right up there. Now I'm going to walk to the back and off the back very bottom of the transom, right that corner right there. And that is how much mast rake I have. The good news is that each one of these black flakes in the main halyard is 1 inch. So I can sit there and I can count how many I've got. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. I just set this boat up. That's too much. I run below 300 pounds typically, combined crew weight, and I'm looking for a mast rake in the low 20s. If I'm going to run above 300, between 300 and 320, which is I think where I'm going to be this weekend with my new crew, I'm going to want to run probably in the upper teens, maybe in the lower 20s in mast rake. So the bigger the number, the more mast rake, the bigger the difference between bow and stern. And when I have heavier crew, I want to stand the mast up a little bit more. That's going to give me a little more power to get through waves and things like that. And so I'm going to go from the low 20s, 23 or 24, upwards into the upper teens. And then if I'm running over 320, I'm going to probably be in the mid-teens, maybe 14 or 15, but I haven't sailed that for so long, I'm not too sure that's even right anymore. So in the last video, I had a mast rake of like 28 or something. I've never sailed with that steep of a rake. I really wouldn't recommend it. But if you do well with it, let me know. Again, the goal is in the mid-20s. What I did is I moved my shrouds up 1 hole. I normally, with most boats, I've sailed on hole 3. With this boat, on hole 4, shrouds are different lengths. So just because one guy sails on hole 2 and you sail on hole 7 or whatever, it doesn't mean anything. What really counts is what your mast rake is. So I'm going to go and I'm going to measure this again. We moved it up. I had to loosen the jib halyard, move that up 1 hole, retighten the jib halyard, and I'm going to go again from, remember, the bottom lip on the bow to the rear corner on the transom. And so I'll come down here and measure right about there. And that's my mast rake. Well, let's convert that to a number. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 20, about 24. And that's good. I might tighten up the jib halyard a little bit more, moving that mast a little bit further forward to get to about 22 or 23. But 24 is actually really good. And since, now I think about it, since I'm going out by myself today, I'll probably just keep it at 24. But if I had my regular crew in racing, I might try squeezing that jib halyard just a little bit more just to get into the 22, 23, but 24 is fine. I don't think I'd want to go above 24. I like the 22 to 24 range. There's one final test that you can do on how tight of a rig you have. Some people like to sail loose rig, some people like to sail tight, some like to sail all over, different. I tend to sail a tight rig, particularly on this lake where it's smooth water. If I get into some really lumpy seas out in the salt water, whatever, I'll try to loosen up that rig a little, kind of let it use it as a shock absorber. But mostly I want to run a tight rig because I want the wind that's hitting the sail to get transferred into the hulls in the form of forward motion. And I just feel like that if it's a loose rig, some of that energy gets lost in the rigging. And so you can take your shroud and run them around in a circle, and how big of a diameter of a circle determines really how tight or how loose your rig is. This one, that's a tight rig, right? That's about as tight as I'm gonna get it, or I wanna run it. You can't have it bone tight. It just, I don't think it's efficient. It's good to have a little bit of looseness. But then, like I said, as the wind pipes up, or if it's really really puffy, and you're popping up the hull all the time. Every little puff you're popping up, and you're having the sheet off the main to keep from flipping. You can take a little bit of jib halyard off, and that'll be a little bit more of a shock absorber. It'll allow the boat to sail a little smoother, so you're not fighting it the whole time, because I've done it that way, and you hit the shore, man, and you are one tired Jose. Plus, it's not really fast either. It's a lot faster if you can just sail smooth. So there's a nice compromise in there.